I'm Vada, 32 years old, and I thought I understood what it meant to be a good wife. I thought supporting my husband meant stepping back when he needed space, trusting him when he made decisions for us, believing him when he said something was for my own good. Then came Santorini, the luxury trip he planned without me, the vacation he said I wouldn't enjoy, the week that revealed who he really was. That betrayal didn't just hurt me. It transformed my entire year in ways he never imagined he'd face. Before I take you through what happened, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe, because what I discovered changed everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Let me take you back to where it all started. 6 months before the trip that would unravel everything, my life looked picture perfect from the outside. I'd been married to Derek for 5 years, together for 7 total. We met at a tech conference in San Francisco back when I was still working in-house as a graphic designer for a startup. Derek was presenting on product management strategies, confident and articulate in his navy suit. I was immediately drawn to his ambition, the way he commanded a room. After his panel, I worked up the courage to introduce myself. 3 months later, we were inseparable. Derek climbed quickly in his career. By the time we married, he was a senior product manager at one of the big tech firms in Silicon Valley, pulling in a solid 6-figure salary. I'd transitioned to freelance work by then, chasing the flexibility I thought would give us a better life together. My income fluctuated, sometimes great, sometimes barely enough to cover my business expenses. Derek never complained, but he naturally took the lead on financial decisions. Our mortgage, our car payments, our savings accounts. He handled it all, and I was grateful. Or at least I told myself I was. We lived comfortably in a 3-bedroom house in Mountain View. Not extravagant, but nice. Enough space for the future family we vaguely discussed. Derek worked long hours. Chang bringing his laptop to bed, responding to Slack messages during dinner. I adapted. Made peace with eating alone some nights. Told myself this was temporary. That once he hit the next promotion, things would ease up. It was a cold January evening when Derek came home with unusual energy. I was in my home office wrapping up a logo design for a boutique client when I heard him practically bounce through the front door. "Babe, come here. You have to see this," he called out. I found him in the kitchen, laptop open on the counter, his face lit up by the screen's glow. He pulled me close, turning the laptop toward me. Images of whitewashed buildings cascading down cliffsides, infinity pools overlooking impossible blue water sunsets, painted in orange and pink. "Santorini," he said, his voice bright. "The company's doing an incentive trip for top performers. 7 days, 5-star resort, everything included. And I qualified." My heart leaped. "Derek, that's incredible. When is it?" "Early July. And here's the best part." He clicked through to another tab showing the resort details. Private balconies, spa services, wine tastings at local vineyards. "Spouses are invited. This is going to be our dream vacation, babe. Just you and me in paradise." I wrapped my arms around him, genuinely excited. We hadn't taken a real vacation in 2 years. Our last trip had been a long weekend in Lake Tahoe, which Derek spent mostly on conference calls. The idea of a full week together somewhere beautiful and far from his office felt like a gift. "We need to start planning," I said, already imagining the possibilities. "I want to visit Oya, see the famous sunset. And there's this red beach I read about. Oh, and the wineries." Derek laughed, kissing the top of my head. "Whatever you want. You deserve this. We both do." That night I created a Pinterest board. Images of flowing white dresses, wide-brimmed hats, strappy sandals, perfect for cobblestone streets. I researched the best restaurants, the hidden spots away from cruise ship crowds. I even started a packing list, though the trip was still 6 months away. The anticipation felt delicious. Over the next few weeks, Derek mentioned the trip periodically. He'd gotten the official invitation, he said. The resort was even nicer than he'd thought. 20 people from his company were going, all top performers and their partners. He seemed genuinely thrilled, and I fed off his excitement. But then he started talking about his coworkers who'd be there. Specifically one person, Tessa. Tessa's really excited about this trip, he mentioned one evening while we were doing dishes. She just joined the company 8 months ago and already hit top performer. Pretty impressive. What does she do? I asked, not thinking much of it. Account director. Handles our biggest clients. She's super driven, really impressive in meetings. I smiled, rinsing a plate. Sounds like good people to vacation with. Yeah, she's great. He paused. She's bringing her husband, too. Already planned out all their outfits, apparently. Very organized. Something about the way he said it, the admiration in his tone, made me glance at him. But his expression was neutral, focused on drying the wine glass in his hands. I pushed the tiny flicker of unease away. Derek worked with lots of people. It was natural he'd talk about them. Still, over the following weeks, Tessa's name came up more often. Tessa landed a huge account. Tessa had great ideas in the strategy meeting. Tessa recommended this restaurant we should try in Santorini. Each mention was casual, but they accumulated in my mind like pennies in a jar. Not enough to worry about individually, but together they started to weigh something. I threw myself into preparing for the trip anyway. I'd just finished a grueling 3-month project for a tech startup designing their entire brand identity. The work had been exhausting, and I was running on fumes by the time I delivered the final files. The Santorini trip felt like the light at the end of the tunnel, a reward for pushing through. One afternoon in late March, I was browsing online and found a white linen dress. Simple, elegant, perfect for sunset photos. It was more expensive than I usually spent on clothes, $149, but I imagined wearing it on a terrace overlooking the caldera, Derek's arm around me, both of us finally relaxed and present with each other. I clicked purchase. When the dress arrived, I tried it on and stood in front of our bedroom mirror. The fabric draped beautifully, and for a moment I could see it. Us happy and reconnected in one of the most beautiful places on earth. I took a photo and sent it to Derek. For Santorini, I texted, adding a heart emoji. His response came an hour later. Nice. Just one word. I told myself he was busy. By April, 3 months before the trip, something had shifted. Derek's enthusiasm about Santorini seemed to evaporate. When I'd bring it up over dinner trying to finalize plans or discuss excursions, he'd give vague responses. Should we book that wine tour? I asked one evening, showing him the website on my phone. We'll figure it out, he said, not even looking up from his own screen. I just thought we should reserve ahead. These things fill up. Vada, I said, we'll figure it out. His tone had an edge I wasn't used to. I backed off, confused. This was supposed to be something we were excited about together. Why did it suddenly feel like I was bothering him? His work hours got longer. He'd leave before I woke up and come home after 9, sometimes 10 at night. When I asked about his day, he'd say he was swamped preparing for a big project that needed to be wrapped up before the trip. I understood, or tried to, but the distance between us was growing and I couldn't quite name what was causing it. I noticed other small things. He'd smile at his phone, a quick private grin before he'd catch himself, and his expression would go neutral again. He'd step out to the garage to take calls, even though he used to pace around the house while talking to colleagues. When I'd walk into a room, he'd sometimes angle his laptop screen away just slightly. I told myself I was being paranoid. Derek had never given me reason not to trust him. We'd built a life together. We were solid. Then came the conversation that made my stomach drop. It was a Saturday afternoon. I'd made lunch hoping we could eat together and maybe talk about the Santorini itinerary. Derek was on the couch with his laptop as usual. Hey, I was thinking we could book that catamaran cruise, I said, setting a sandwich down next to him. The one that goes around the island at sunset. It looks incredible. He didn't look at me. Actually, I'm not sure you should come to Santorini. The words hit me like cold water. What? I've been thinking about it. He finally looked up, his expression serious. The trip is going to be really work-focused. There are networking events every night, cocktail parties with executives. You know how you are with those corporate things. You always say they drain you. I sat down slowly, trying to process. But this is supposed to be a vacation. It's an incentive trip, yeah, but it's still company sponsored. There are expectations. He set his laptop aside, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. Plus, you've been so busy with your clients lately. Don't you have those deadlines coming up? Maybe you need to focus on your work instead of taking a week off. My mind reeled. Derek, we planned this together. You said spouses were invited. They are. But I'm just thinking about what's best for you, babe. His voice was gentle, reasonable. I don't want you to spend a week feeling uncomfortable at events you hate surrounded by people talking shop. That's not relaxing for you. He was right that I didn't love corporate networking events. The forced small talk, the posturing, everyone trying to seem impressive. But this was Santorini. This was supposed to be our time. I could skip the networking events, I offered. Just enjoy the resort while you do the work stuff. Maybe. He picked up his laptop again. Let me think about it. That night I lay awake long after Derek fell asleep beside me. His breathing was steady and deep, untroubled. Meanwhile, my mind spun in circles. Was I overreacting? He'd made valid points. I did have client deadlines. I did hate corporate events. Maybe he really was thinking about my comfort. But something felt wrong. The way he'd brought it up so casually, like uninviting your wife from a trip you'd planned together for months, was a minor logistical adjustment. The way he'd framed it as being for my benefit when it was starting to feel like he simply didn't want me there. I thought about Tessa bringing her husband. If the trip was so work-heavy, why was she bringing her spouse? I wanted to ask Derek, but something stopped me. A small voice warning me that if I pushed, I might not like what I found. Over the next few weeks, I tried to bring up Santorini a few more times. Each conversation went nowhere. Derek remained non-committal, saying we'd discuss it later, that he needed to check some details with his company. I felt like I was begging for permission to go on a vacation we'd supposedly planned as a couple, and the humiliation of that stung. One evening in early May, I broke. I was cooking dinner when Derek came home, and the moment I heard his keys in the door, something inside me snapped. I need to know about Santorini, I said before he'd even set down his bag. Are we going together or not? He sighed, loosening his tie. Vada, I told you I'm thinking about it. It's 2 months away. We need to decide. Why are you pushing this so hard? He walked past me to the fridge, grabbing a beer. Because it's important to me, because we planned this. Plans change. He took a long drink, leaning against the counter. Look, I got more details from HR. The trip is definitely going to be networking heavy. Morning sessions, team dinners, evening events with the executive team. You'd be miserable. Let me decide what would make me miserable. I'm trying to protect you from wasting a week being uncomfortable. The word protect felt like a slap, like I was a child who needed shielding from my own decisions. What about the itinerary? I pressed. I saw the one they sent out. There's plenty of free time. Beach days, spa activities, optional excursions. His jaw tightened. How did you see the itinerary? The question hung in the air. I hadn't meant to admit I'd looked. A few days earlier, Derek's email had been open on his laptop, and I'd seen a message from his company's travel coordinator. I'd clicked it, just to see. Just to confirm what he'd been telling me. And what I'd found told a different story than the one Derek had been selling. Yes, there were some networking events, a welcome dinner, a closing ceremony. But most of the week was unstructured. Free time to explore the island, relax at the resort, enjoy being in Greece. He'd been lying to me about the nature of the trip. Your email was open, I said quietly. I wasn't snooping. I just saw it. So you were checking up on me. His voice went cold. I just wanted to see the schedule since you wouldn't show me. Because I knew you'd react like this. Overanalyzing everything, making a big deal out of nothing. You lied to me, Derek. You said the trip was all networking. But it's not. He set his beer down hard enough that foam sloshed over the rim. Those activities are optional for a reason, Vada. Because some of us will be networking. Just because there's free time on the schedule doesn't mean I'll have free time. Then why is Tessa bringing her husband? The name dropped between us like a stone. Derek's expression flickered, something crossing his face too quickly for me to read. What does Tessa have to do with anything? You said she's bringing her husband. If the trip is so work-focused, why is she bringing him? I don't know. That's her choice. He grabbed his beer and moved toward the stairs. I'm not doing this right now. I have work to finish. Derek, wait. I said I'm done. He didn't turn around. We'll talk about this later. I stood alone in this kitchen, the half-cooked dinner forgotten on the stove, and felt the foundation of my marriage crack beneath my feet. The month of June arrived with a tension that filled every corner of our house. Derek and I barely spoke beyond logistics. He worked later than ever, coming home after I'd already gone to bed some nights. When we were in the same room, the air felt thick and uncomfortable. I kept thinking about Santorini, about the trip that had transformed from a dream into a source of pain. Part of me wanted to drop it to let Derek go alone and avoid the conflict, but a bigger part of me refused to be pushed aside. This wasn't just about a vacation anymore. It was about respect, about partnership, about whether I had any say in my own marriage. One morning in mid-June, less than 3 weeks before the trip, Derek made his final decision for me. I was working in my office when he appeared in the doorway, dressed for work, car keys already in hand. I've decided, he said without preamble. You're not coming to Santorini. I turned slowly in my chair. Excuse me. Be realistic, Vada. You wouldn't enjoy it. It's going to be work-focused, exactly like I said. You'd be bored and resentful, and then you'd blame me for dragging you there. So you're just deciding for me. Someone has to make the practical choice here. He checked his watch. Plus, the tickets are expensive. We can save that money, do our own trip later. Just the two of us, somewhere you'd actually want to go. Something about his tone, the casual dismissal, made anger flare hot in my chest. How much is the ticket? What? How much would my ticket cost? He hesitated. $2,500. The number hit me like a punch. You never told me that. You made it sound like spouses were included. I thought I mentioned it. Look, it's not worth spending that much for you to be uncomfortable for a week. You thought you mentioned it. I stood up, my hands shaking. You've been planning this trip for 6 months, and you somehow forgot to mention that crucial detail. I'm not doing this right now. I have a meeting. He turned to leave. I'll pay for my own ticket. He stopped, turned back. What? You heard me? I'll pay for my ticket. I have the money from the brand project I just finished. $2,500. I'll cover it myself. His face shifted through several expressions. Surprise, then something harder. That's your emergency fund, Vada. Don't be impulsive. Going on a trip with my husband isn't impulsive. Using your savings for a trip you don't even want to go on is. I do want to go. I've wanted to go this whole time. You're the one who suddenly doesn't want me there. My voice cracked. Why, Derek? What changed? For a moment I thought he might tell me the truth. Whatever it was, he'd been hiding whatever was really behind this sudden exclusion. But instead his expression went cold. Do whatever you want, he said. But don't blame me when you're miserable there sitting alone while I'm in meetings and events. Don't come crying to me about how you don't fit in with my coworkers. Your coworkers, since when do you care if I fit in with them? Since always. You think I don't notice how quiet you get at company events, how you stand in the corner nursing one drink all night. He was cruel now, weaponizing my introversion. I'm trying to save you from a week of that. But fine. Waste your money. Be uncomfortable. See if I care. He left the front door slamming behind him. I stood in my office, trembling, tears streaming down my face. In 5 years of marriage, Derek had never spoken to me like that. Had never been that deliberately hurtful. I walked to our bedroom and opened my laptop. My hands were still shaking as I pulled up my bank account. The money from my recent project sat there. $2,800 after taxes. My safety net. The cushion that let me sleep at night knowing I could handle an emergency. I booked the flight to Santorini. If my marriage was falling apart, I needed to know why. And I wasn't going to find answers sitting at home while Derek spent a week in paradise without me. The confirmation email arrived in my inbox. I forwarded it to Derek with no message. Just the proof that I'd done it, that I'd called his bluff. He didn't respond. Over the next 2 weeks, Derek's behavior grew even more distant. He stopped sleeping in our bedroom, claiming his alarm would wake me since he had to be up so early. He ate meals at the office. We went entire days without seeing each other despite living in the same house. I tried to reach him, left notes on the counter asking if we could talk, texted him during the day with simple messages just trying to maintain some connection. His responses were brief and cold. Busy. Talk later. Later never came. One evening I couldn't take it anymore. I went upstairs to the guest room where he'd been sleeping and knocked on the door. "Derek, please. Can we just talk? I have an early morning." His voice came muffled through the door. "I'm your wife. I deserve more than this." The door opened. He stood there in his pajamas, looking exhausted and annoyed. "What do you want me to say, Vada?" "I want you to tell me what's really going on. Why you don't want me on this trip. Why you're treating me like an inconvenience instead of your partner." "Because I need space." The words burst out of him. "I work with these people every day. I don't want to have to babysit you while I'm trying to network and maintain relationships that matter for my career." Babysit. The word cut deeper than anything else he'd said. I wasn't a partner to bring along. I was a burden to manage. "I never asked you to babysit me." "You wouldn't have to ask. I know you. You'd be anxious and uncomfortable, and I'd feel responsible for making sure you're okay instead of focusing on what I need to focus on." He rubbed his face. "I'm going to bed. I suggest you do the same." He closed the door. I stood there for a long moment, then walked slowly back to our bedroom. The room we used to share before he decided he needed space from me in every possible way. I went into our bathroom, closed the door, and cried until I had nothing left. Derek left for Santorini on a Thursday morning. I heard him moving around downstairs before dawn, the sound of his suitcase wheels on our hardwood floors. Part of me wanted to go down to try one more time to fix whatever was breaking between us. But I stayed in bed, eyes open in the dark, listening to him leave. The front door closed. His car started in the driveway. He was gone. I got up, made coffee I didn't drink, and sat at our kitchen table as morning light filled the room. My flight was the next day. Derek didn't know I'd kept my booking. After our last fight, I hadn't mentioned Santorini again. Let him think I'd backed down, canceled my plans, accepted his decision. The first day passed in a blur. I worked or tried to. Mostly I stared at my computer screen designs blurring in front of me. Derek texted once that evening. "Arrived safe." I didn't respond. The second day he sent a photo of the resort. White buildings, blue domed roofs, that iconic Santorini architecture. The message read, "Hotel's nice." Still no apology. No acknowledgement that we were supposed to be experiencing this together. I set my phone face down and tried not to scream. That evening I packed my own suitcase. The white linen dress I'd bought in March, still with tags on. Sundresses, swimsuit, sandals. My camera, because even if my marriage was imploding, I could at least document something beautiful. I zipped the suitcase closed and set it by the door. My flight left at 6 in the morning. I barely slept. I arrived in Santorini on Saturday afternoon, exhausted from travel and the weight of what I was doing. I hadn't told Derek I was coming. Hadn't confirmed which resort the company was using, though I'd figured it out from the logo in his photo. I checked into a small hotel in Fira, not the luxury resort where Derek was staying. I needed space to think, to decide my next move. I texted him, "I'm here." 3 hours later he responded, "Here where?" "Santorini. I told you I booked my flight." My phone rang immediately. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. I declined the call. A text appeared. "Vada, what the hell? You can't just show up here. You invited me, remember, 6 months ago? This is insane. Where are you staying?" "Not your concern. Enjoy your trip." I turned my phone off and went to find dinner. The next morning, Sunday, I woke early and took a bus to Oya. The village clung to cliffs overlooking the caldera, every view more stunning than the last. I walked narrow streets past boutiques and cafes, trying to let the beauty sink in. But my mind kept circling back to Derek. Was he panicking that I was here? Had he told his coworkers? Had he told Tessa I found a cafe with a view and ordered Greek coffee? As I waited, I scrolled Instagram, a habit I'd avoided since Derek left. My stomach clenched when I saw Tessa's profile had a new story. I'd found her account weeks ago during one of my sleepless nights. Tessa Grant, account director, her bio read. Her feed was carefully curated. Professional accomplishments, artfully plated meals, workout selfies. She was beautiful. Tall, blonde fit. The kind of woman who looked effortlessly put together. Her current story showed a sunset dinner view. Wine glasses, two of them, catching golden light. The ocean stretched endlessly beyond. The caption read, "Paradise exists," with a location tag for a restaurant in Oya. A romantic restaurant, not a group dinner spot. My hands tightened around my phone. I clicked to the next story. A selfie of Tessa Wend in her hair, that same sunset behind her. She looked radiant, happy-free. No Derek visible in any photos, but the implications were clear. Who was she having that romantic dinner with? Where was her husband she'd supposedly brought? I paid for my coffee and left my appetite gone. I spent the day walking aimlessly, trying to outpace my thoughts. By evening, I returned to my hotel and finally turned my phone back on. 12 missed calls from Derek. A string of texts ranging from angry to worried to coldly furious. "You need to tell me where you are." "This is childish." "Fine, ignore me. But don't show up at the resort." "I mean it, Vada. Stay away." That last message made my decision. Tomorrow, I was going to that resort. Monday morning, I dressed carefully. A simple sundress, sandals, my hair loose. I looked like any other tourist. I took a taxi to the luxury resort, my heart pounding. The entrance was stunning, all white stone and cascading bougainvillea. I walked through the lobby like I belonged there, past infinity pools, where beautiful people lounged in designer swimwear. I spotted Derek almost immediately. He was at the pool bar with a group of people. Tessa was next to him, laughing at something he'd said. She wore a white bikini that probably cost more than my flight. Her hand rested on Derek's arm as she leaned in to tell him something. Derek looked relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in months. His smile was genuine, his posture loose. He looked happy, happier than he'd been with me in so long I couldn't remember. I watched from behind a column as Tessa's husband appeared, handing her a drink. So he was here. But the way Tessa and Derek interacted, the familiar ease between them, made my stomach turn. This wasn't just professional friendliness. I left before Derek could spot me and returned to my hotel. That night my phone rang. Jordan, my college best friend who now lived in Seattle. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Vada, hey, are you okay?" Jordan's voice was gentle, concerned. "I'm in Santorini." "I know. I heard. That's actually why I'm calling." A pause. "My cousin Bree works at Derek's company. She's on this trip too." My pulse quickened. "Okay. She called me this morning. She thought I should know in case you didn't." Jordan took a breath. "Bree says Derek and this woman Tessa have been really close all weekend. Like together for breakfast, sitting next to each other at dinners, going off on their own. She said it doesn't look good, Vada." The confirmation hurt, even though I'd already known. "I saw them today, at the pool." "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry." We talked for an hour. Jordan helped me cry, helped me rage, helped me start to see clearly through the fog of pain. When we hung up, I felt hollowed out but strangely calm. I knew what I needed to do. Tuesday night, past midnight in Santorini, which meant it was mid-afternoon in California. I called Derek. He answered on the first ring. "Vada." "Are you with Tessa right now?" My voice was steady. "What? No. I'm in my room. It's the middle of the night." People saw you together. All weekend. What's going on, Derek? Nothing is going on. She's a coworker. We're all hanging out together. Everyone's been hanging out. That's not what I heard. Who have you been talking to? His tone shifted defensive. You know what, I don't care. You're being paranoid. This is exactly why I didn't want you here. You're creating drama where there is none. I'm creating drama. I'm not the one who excluded my spouse from a trip so I could spend it with another woman. Oh my God, Vada. You sound insane right now. Tessa has a husband here. We're friends. That's it. Then why did you buy jewelry in Santorini? Jewelry I never received. Silence. Long enough that I knew I'd hit something true. I checked our credit card statement that morning, needing proof of what I suspected. How did you... You're checking our accounts now, seriously? Who did you buy it for? It's none of your business. I'm your wife. It's absolutely my business when you're spending our money on gifts for other women. You're being ridiculous. I'm hanging up. We'll talk when I get home. No, we'll talk now. Goodbye, Vada. The line went dead. I sat on my hotel bed, phone in my lap, and felt everything crystallize. The gaslighting, the lies, the manipulation disguised as concern. Derek had carefully constructed a narrative where I was the problem. Too needy, too insecure, too much. And I'd almost believed him. But I was done believing. I flew home on Wednesday, 2 days before Derek was due back. The flight gave me time to think, to plan, to transform my pain into something useful. By the time I landed in San Francisco, I knew exactly what I needed to do. First, I called Jordan. I need your help. Anything. What do you need? A lawyer recommendation, and maybe a place to stay for a few days if this goes badly. Oh, Vada. Jordan's voice was proud and sad at once. I'm here. Whatever you need. Jordan connected me with Ms. Patterson, a divorce attorney her firm had worked with. I booked a consultation for Thursday morning. That gave me 1 day to prepare. I spent Wednesday afternoon going through our shared accounts, our documents, anything financial. I took screenshots of everything. Bank statements showing Derek's Santorini purchases. The jewelry charge at a boutique, $375. Expensive dinners not covered by the company card. Evidence of a pattern. I went through Derek's office feeling sick, but determined. In his desk drawer, I found a printed itinerary from the trip, handwritten notes in the margins. Wine tasting with tea. Sunset hike. Dinner at Ambrosia. All activities he'd told me would be networking events. I photographed everything. That evening I went through our photos. 5 years of marriage documented in thousands of images. Early days when Derek looked at me like I mattered. Our wedding, both of us so young and hopeful. Vacations, holidays, ordinary moments. I cried looking at them, mourning what we'd been, what we'd never actually been. Then I wiped my face and kept working. Thursday morning I met Ms. Patterson at her office in downtown Palo Alto. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed and professional. I laid out everything. The emotional distancing, the exclusion from Santorini, the evidence of Derek's relationship with Tessa. Do you think he's having a physical affair? She asked. I don't know. Maybe not yet. But emotional infidelity is still infidelity. She nodded. In California, we have no-fault divorce, so technically, you don't need to prove anything. But this kind of evidence can be useful for other aspects. Let's talk about assets. We spent 2 hours going through my options. The house which we'd bought 3 years ago with a down payment from my grandmother's inheritance. Our savings. Derek's 401k. My freelance business. What I was entitled to, what I could fight for, what made sense to pursue. My advice, Ms. Patterson said, is to decide first what you really want. Do you want to try to save the marriage? Or are you done? I thought about Derek at that pool bar laughing with Tessa. The way he'd called me paranoid insane. The way he'd made me doubt my own reality for months. I'm done, I said. Then let's make sure you're protected. I left her office with a plan and a retainer agreement. It felt surreal, terrifying, and somehow empowering all at once. That afternoon, I opened a separate bank account at a different bank. I transferred exactly half of our joint savings. Legally, it was my right. We'd been contributing equally, or as equally as our fluctuating incomes allowed. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I reached out to old clients, people I'd worked with before but hadn't pitched recently. I sent emails proposing new projects, offering package deals, putting myself out there with a confidence I'd lost somewhere in my marriage. By Friday morning, I had 3 new contracts signed. Not huge projects, but enough to make me feel capable, independent. Enough to remind me I didn't need Derek's income to survive. Derek was due home Saturday morning. I spent Friday preparing the house, but not in the way I would have weeks ago. I wasn't cleaning for his arrival or planning a welcome home dinner. I was creating space for myself. I moved my things out of our bedroom. Clothes, toiletries, books. I set up the guest room as my own space. Then I gathered all my evidence into a folder. Printed screenshots, receipts, timelines. Everything organized and clear. Saturday morning, I heard Derek's car in the driveway. My heart hammered, but I stayed seated on the couch folder on my lap. This was it. He came through the door, pulling his suitcase, tanned and tired. He'd brought gifts, I noticed. A bag from the airport, probably olive oil and wine like every tourist buys. "Hey, babe. I missed you." He set the bag down and moved toward me like he was going to kiss me. I leaned back. "Did you—" He stopped reading my expression. "What's going on?" "Sit down, Derek. We need to talk." Something in my tone made him comply. He sat in the armchair across from me, suddenly wary. I opened the folder and set it on the coffee table between us. "I know about Tessa," I said calmly. "Vada, I told you nothing happened. Let me finish." I was surprised by how steady my voice was. "I have evidence of you spending time alone with her. Romantic dinners, private excursions. I have receipts for jewelry you bought that I never received. I have witness accounts from your own coworkers about how close you two were all week." Derek's face went pale. "Who told you that?" "It doesn't matter. What matters is that you excluded me from a trip we planned together, lied about the nature of that trip, and spent the week cultivating a relationship with another woman while gaslighting me for questioning your behavior. I didn't—" He stopped, seeming to realize denial was pointless. "Nothing physical happened. That's not the point. You chose her over me. Emotionally, you checked out of our marriage months ago." I was confused. Work was stressful, and she was there, and she understood that world in a way. He trailed off. "In a way I don't. I know. You've made that very clear." I leaned forward. "I also spoke to a divorce attorney." His eyes widened. "A divorce attorney, Vada, come on. We can work through this. Can we? Because from where I'm sitting, you've shown me exactly how you value me. You made a decision about our lives without me. You lied to me repeatedly. You made me question my own sanity." "I'm sorry." He ran his hands through his hair. "I'm so sorry. I was an idiot. But please, let's try. We can do counseling. I'll quit my job if I have to. Whatever you need." For a moment, I almost believed the desperation in his voice. But then I remembered that pool bar, his genuine smile as he talked to Tessa. The happiness I couldn't give him anymore if I ever had. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "You're going to move out of our bedroom. You already started that, so keep going. Tomorrow, you're going to contact HR and request a transfer away from Tessa's team. If they can't accommodate that, you'll start looking for a new job." "Okay, yes, I'll do that. You'll start couples therapy with me. I already researched therapists. Dr. Kim has an opening next week. If you refuse therapy, we go straight to divorce proceedings." Derek nodded quickly. "I'll go. I'll do whatever you want. And you'll give me full transparency. Phone, email, everything. You've broken my trust. If you want any chance of rebuilding it, you need to be an open book." "Okay. Those are my terms. Non-negotiable. You have 24 hours to decide if you're willing to meet them." I stood up, leaving the folder on the table. Derek sat frozen, staring at the evidence of his betrayal. "I'm sleeping in the guest room," I said. "Don't disturb me tonight. Tomorrow you'll give me your answer." I walked away, leaving him there. My hands were shaking, adrenaline flooding my system. But I'd done it. I'd taken control of the narrative. I'd stopped being the victim of his choices and started making my own. Derek chose to try. The next morning, he agreed to all my terms. He moved his things fully into the guest room. Monday, he contacted HR, and by that Wednesday, he'd been transferred to a different division. He gave me his phone and laptop passwords, his email login, everything. We started therapy with Dr. Kim the following week. The sessions were hard. Derek cried in the second one, talking about how he'd felt trapped by the weight of being the primary earner, how Tessa had made him feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. I listened, processing, trying to understand. Dr. Kim helped me see patterns I'd ignored. The way Derek had slowly taken over all decisions, framing it as being helpful, when really it was about control. The way I'd made myself smaller and smaller, accommodating his needs while neglecting my own. The way we'd both stopped really seeing each other somewhere along the way. For about 6 weeks, I genuinely tried. I wanted to believe we could rebuild something real from these ashes. Derek was attentive in a way he hadn't been in years. He came home for dinner. He asked about my work. He planned date nights, trying to recreate the romance we'd lost. But something in me had fundamentally shifted. Every time I looked at him, I remembered standing outside that resort watching him laugh with Tessa while I stood invisible and excluded. I remembered the word babysit, the way he'd made me feel like a burden rather than a partner. And I realized something crucial. I didn't miss him. These weeks of living separate lives under the same roof, I'd been happier than I'd been in years. I'd been working on my own projects, making my own decisions, not constantly adjusting myself to fit someone else's expectations. I'd been free. 10 weeks into therapy, during a solo session, Dr. Kim asked me what I wanted. "I want a divorce," I said. The words came easily. No hesitation. She nodded slowly. "Have you told Derek?" "Not yet, but I'm certain." That evening, I waited for Derek to come home from work. He'd been making an effort, arriving by 6 most days. When he walked in, I was sitting at the kitchen table. "We need to talk," I said. His face fell. He knew. "I want a divorce," I told him. "I appreciate everything you've been doing these past weeks. I see that you're trying, but I don't want to be married to you anymore. Vada, please. We're making progress," Dr. Kim said. Dr. Kim helped me realize a lot of things, including the fact that I've been unhappy for much longer than just Santorini. That trip was just the moment I couldn't ignore it anymore. Derek sat down heavily. "So that's it. You're just giving up." "I'm not giving up. I'm choosing myself. Maybe for the first time in our marriage." "What about everything we built together?" "We'll divide it fairly. I already spoke to Ms. Patterson about the process. We can do this amicably, or we can fight. I'd prefer amicably." He was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was small. "I ruined this, didn't I? We both played our parts. But yes, your choice to exclude me and pursue someone else was the breaking point." The divorce process took 3 months. Derek didn't fight me on anything, whether from guilt or exhaustion, I didn't know. We split our assets down the middle. I bought out his half of the house using money from a settlement and a loan against my freelance income. He moved into an apartment in San Jose. By January, 1 year after that night, he'd first shown me pictures of Santorini. We were officially divorced, and I was free. The months after the divorce were a process of rediscovery. I painted our bedroom a soft sage green. Derek had always hated color on the walls. I bought plants, filling the house with life. I said yes to social invitations I would have previously declined, worried about getting home to Derek or fitting into his schedule. I joined a hiking group and met people who had no connection to my old life. On Saturdays, we'd drive to different trails, spending hours in nature. I felt my body get stronger, my mind clearer. I enrolled in a photography class, something I'd loved in college but abandoned when adult life took over. My teacher, an older woman named Claire, encouraged me to develop my own style. I started carrying my camera everywhere, capturing moments that moved me. A sunset over the bay, strangers laughing in a cafe, the way light fell through my kitchen window in the afternoon. 5 months after my divorce was final, Claire told me about a small gallery in San Francisco that was looking for local artists for a group exhibition. "You should submit," she said. "I'm not good enough. Let them decide that." I submitted 3 photographs. One was from my solo trip to Big Sur, a road I'd wanted to travel for years but Derek had always called boring. The winding highway, the endless ocean, the sense of possibility in that empty road. They accepted all 3. The opening night was in late May. I wore a dress I'd bought for myself, deep blue. Nothing I would have chosen when I was trying to be Derek's perfect wife. Jordan flew down from Seattle to support me. My hiking group friends came. Claire came. The small gallery was warm with people who cared about me, about my work. A man from the hiking group, Marcus, stood next to me as we looked at my photographs on the wall. "These are incredible vada," he said. "Thank you." I felt proud, genuinely proud of myself. "That one," he pointed to the Big Sur photo. "There's so much freedom in it." That's exactly what it felt like. Marcus was kind, easy to talk to, thoughtful in ways that surprised me. We'd been on several hikes together, had grabbed coffee a few times after. Nothing serious, nothing defined, just the gentle possibility of something new. "Would you want to get dinner sometime?" he asked. "Not as a group thing, just us." I smiled. "I'd like that." I wasn't ready for anything serious. Maybe I wouldn't be for a while. But I was open to possibility in a way I hadn't been in years. Now, standing in my living room, 1 full year after that devastating Santorini trip, I look at how completely my life has transformed. The house is fully mine, decorated in ways that make me happy. My freelance business is thriving, bringing in more than I ever made working for Derek's vision of our life. I have friends' hobbies, a photography practice that feeds my soul. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Derek is still at his company, still in that new division. Tessa left the company months ago, took a position somewhere else. I heard Derek tried dating, but it didn't work out. I don't know the details, and I realize I don't care. The anger I felt has mellowed into something like gratitude. Not for what Derek did, but for what it forced me to become. He thought excluding me from Santorini would give him freedom to pursue whatever he was chasing with Tessa. He never imagined that his betrayal would set me free from him. For years I made myself smaller, quieter, more accommodating. I told myself that's what marriage required, that compromise meant always being the one to bend. I let Derek make decisions about our money, our future, our lives, because it seemed easier than fighting. But that night when he said, I wouldn't enjoy Santorini, when he made my exclusion sound like a favor, something cracked open in me. I started asking questions I'd been too afraid to voice. What did I want? What did I deserve? What would my life look like if I stopped trying to fit into someone else's vision? The answers led me here, to a life that's entirely my own. I went to Santorini eventually. That December, booked myself a trip. I stayed at a beautiful small hotel in Oia, the village I dreamed about. I wore that white linen dress I'd bought a year earlier. I watched the sunset from a cliff edge, surrounded by strangers and completely at peace. The island was as beautiful as the photos had promised. But the real beauty was how I felt there. Whole, complete, not needing anyone else to validate my experience or tell me if I was enjoying it correctly. I took hundreds of photos. My favorite is one Jordan took of me standing at that cliff edge, the Aegean Sea endless behind me. I'm smiling, and it's real. The kind of happiness that comes from knowing yourself, from being exactly who you are without apology. That photo hangs in my bedroom now, a reminder of what transformation looks like. It doesn't always come from triumph or success. Sometimes it comes from betrayal, from the moment someone shows you exactly who they are, and you finally believe them. Derek gave me Santorini after all. Just not in the way he intended. He gave me the push I needed to stop waiting for permission to live my own life. He gave me the gift of his absence, the space to discover who I was without him. Last week I ran into him at a coffee shop near my old office. We were both surprised, both awkward. He looked older, tired. "Vada," he said. "You look great." "Thank you. I'm doing really well. I heard about your photography, the exhibitions. That's amazing. It's been a good year." We stood there for a moment, two people who used to share everything and now had nothing but history. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "For everything. For Santorini. For how I treated you. You deserved better." "I did," I agreed. "But I found it. Just not with you." He nodded, understanding. We said goodbye and I walked away without looking back. The transformation Derek never imagined wasn't about revenge or proving him wrong. It was subtler than that. It was about a woman who thought her worth was tied to her marriage, discovering that her worth was hers alone all along. It was about learning that sometimes the trip you're excluded from is exactly the journey you needed to take by yourself. Now, when people ask if I enjoyed Santorini, I smile and tell them it was life-changing. They think I'm talking about the island, the beauty, the experience of Greece. And I am partly. But mostly I'm talking about the journey that started the day Derek decided I wouldn't enjoy paradise. The journey toward myself, toward freedom, toward a life built on my own terms. That's the transformation he never imagined. He thought leaving me behind would free him. Instead, it freed me from him. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. So if you're watching this and you recognize yourself in my story, if someone in your life is telling you that you wouldn't enjoy something, that you don't fit, that you're too much or not enough, I want you to hear this. That's not love. That's control disguised as care. You deserve someone who wants you in every room, at every table, on every adventure. Someone who sees your presence as a gift, not a burden. And if you can't find that person, be that person for yourself. Book the trip. Take the class. Start the business. Do the thing you've been told you wouldn't enjoy. You might surprise yourself with how much you thrive when you stop asking permission to exist fully. Have you ever been excluded from something that ended up changing your life for the better? Or maybe you're going through something similar right now and wondering if you'll get through it. Drop a comment and share your story. I read every single one, and your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, because I share more stories about finding yourself after loss, about transformation that comes from the hardest moments. And share this with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes we all need the reminder that we're stronger than we think. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here, for witnessing this journey. I hope wherever you are in your own transformation, you know that you're not alone. That your worth isn't determined by who chooses to stay or leave. That sometimes the best thing that ever happens to you looks like the worst thing at first. May you find your own Santorini, your own moment of choosing yourself, your own transformation that nobody saw coming. Until next time, remember that paradise isn't a place. It's the freedom to be completely unapologetically yourself. And that's worth more than any luxury trip could ever be.